Newsfirst, Newsline.
A very good evening to you. You are watching Newsline on TV1. At the outset, let me remind you that this is a recorded program and we have a very interesting personality here in the studio to talk about something that is happening in Parliament this week. We have the opposition leader, Honourable Sajith Premadasa, here with us in the studio. Thank you very much, Mr. Premadasa, for joining us.
Good evening and good day.
Good evening to you. We are going to talk about something very important to the country, but we are also talking about this particular point at a time where the opposition and you as the opposition leader has announced sort of a political ceasefire with the government. We're going to talk about the Port City Commission bill that is being taken up with the Supreme Court determination in a few days in Parliament. Let's start with the first obvious question. Yola, are you against it or are you for it?
First and foremost, let me clarify this issue regarding a political ceasefire. That is a basic phrase that has been concocted by interested political parties to misguide and misrepresent our opinion. What we have said is that we should unite as a nation to counter the COVID menace. That's all what I said. There is absolutely no ceasefire at all. As far as we are concerned, we are basically promoting the people's interest and the national interest. So that particular phrase was utilized by an interested media organization which is hell-bent on destroying SJB and trying to promote a different political party and a personality. Let me at the outset tell you that the port city development is here. It's a reality. What we want to do is to make it a success. However, with the present way of things, if we look at the various stipulations in the bill, I have to tell you that there are serious concerns, grave and glaring reservations regarding this bill. For example, we have a concern that it will promote financial colonialism, that Sri Lanka will become a vassal state, and that we will be subjugated to strictures of foreign countries, and we will have to be always, we have to second guess, and we may be subjugated to foreign diktats. We are concerned about the creation of a kleptocracy. We are worried about the power concentration and the power centralization process. We believe that the present provisions, some provisions, violate the constitution, violates the noble principles of separation of power, rule of law, the checks and balances doctrine, the public trust doctrine, and more important, it violates Sri Lanka's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and political independence. So we are all for it, with a big proviso that we change the draconian, autocratic, authoritarian power concentration measures, and we have a very democratic, a very transparent, a very open regime, a system of rules and structures which are acceptable to the people, and we have to protect the country's sovereignty and the territorial integrity. We cannot be a slave state. We cannot be a financial colony of another country.
Mr. Premadasa, now you along with several other factions went to the Supreme Court taking this bill that was tabled initially. But thereafter, at the Supreme Court stage, there were amendments that were proposed by the government. So some of the points that you mentioned, aren't they covered by these amendments, and do the people know what these amendments are?
We don't know as yet. The Supreme Court decision is yet to be tabled and made public. So tomorrow morning, that's Tuesday morning, we will know the thinking of the Supreme Court, whether these provisions are in line with the provisions of the Constitution. But if I may just move on and express a few concerns that we have. Now this particular commission, we have absolutely no issue if it was a body corporate. But this is not clear at all, because we have an overseas company, a Chinese company, investing 400 million rupees in it. There is no government investment at all as far as we observe. So this creates a lot of issues. A lot of issues regarding parliamentary sovereignty, oversight, supervision. What kind of an entity is this commission going to be? As far as I'll go through the various other provisions, we see this establishment of this commission as an entity which has extreme autonomy, and basically they will be having a kind of a self-governing system for that particular territorial area, and that is very dangerous. Second, as far as the composition of the commission is concerned, we have very, very serious concerns. The draft that was there before was you had 5 people who are appointed ex officio. The Secretary to the Treasury, Governor of the Central Bank, the UDA Secretary, Chairman of BOI, and the Chairman of the Stock Exchange.
You're talking
Commission.
about the previous bill.
Previous proposal. And of course, there was the opportunity of appointing a few more, but all of them,
if I'm not mistaken, to go up to 8 people at that time.
Yeah, those who were to be appointed had to gain the consent and the acquiescence of the Constitutional Council. But what has happened now? Here, the President alone has the power to appoint 5 to 7 members in whichever form that he prefers. So there's also this issue of whether non-citizens can become members. This is the most glaring weakness in the bill. Here, it may be that if several foreigners are appointed for these positions as members of the commission, it may be injurious to our national security. It will be detrimental to sovereignty of the country. So there we have a very big concern. And also, why aren't we having the central bank, the SEC, and other relevant organizations as regulators? As I see it, the main domestic regulator will be the commission. So, I mean, you'll have a law unto itself, and you may be creating an undemocratic, unaccountable, irresponsible monster. And this issue is also there in a very big way. We are also concerned about the fact that several acts have been removed from this particular jurisdiction, and basically governmental institutions will be obliged to provide its concurrence to whatever the commission proposes. And also this commission will also be given the power to design community rules. So when you have that, you are creating a separate set of rules for this particular geographical area, which I believe consists of 269 hectares, and we will be having a different set of acts, regulations and rules for the country, for Sri Lanka proper. So is this going to be a separate geographical entity that will be controlled by a foreign state? Is it going to have its own rules and regulations that will be contradictory to Sri Lanka's rules? I mean, what's going to happen to one rule, one country proposal of this present administration? So these are some of the major concerns that we have. Of course, I want to, with your permission, after you go ahead, I can express to you the other major concerns that we have.
Let's get there. Mr. Premadasa, now all these are problems, yes, and you all have decided to ask the government to give you all time to talk about this. We initially knew that it was coming a week ago, but because the Supreme Court verdict was not available, it was postponed. Now, at the party leaders meeting and today at the Parliamentary Business Committee meeting, you all are deciding to take this up on for 2 days. That's as far as we know. That's the plan for now. 2 days is enough to take the people through all of this.
Well, first and foremost, at the business committee meeting, we proposed that this debate be postponed because the country priority is not the port city bill. The country priority is eliminating or neutralizing COVID.
Yeah.
So the government, the manner in which they are bringing this particular bill is also highly suspicious. And I, for one, am for democracy, transparency, and we have to protect the judicial power of the country. We have to protect the judiciary, we have to protect the sovereignty of the parliament. I believe all those issues are very heavily compromised by this bill.
So let's get to it now. You mentioned several key points, but as I see through a lot of research, you have found out more that is available to us. Let's take the people through one by one. From the viewpoint of the opposition leader, what are the main issues?
Okay, so you are discriminating against ordinary citizens. Just go through the commission powers, clause 26, clause 27, clause 30/1, clause 30/2. You are giving this entity enormous amounts of power, issuing of business licenses. You have to show how much of foreign investment you are bringing in. That's fine, but Sri Lankans are discriminated. People living in our country are discriminated. They cannot use their Sri Lankan local foreign currency accounts or funds for investment purposes. And basically, if you are a non-citizen, it's easier to get a business license than when you are a citizen. So, these clauses amply exemplify the huge amounts of power that is given to the Commission. Let me tell you another thing.
Yes.
You are creating another customs zone. Just look at 40/2 of the bill. You are creating a separate territorial unit, a kind of a situation where if Sri Lankans go and purchase goods on their way out or wherever in their bills, they have to pay a levy. So that's basically creating another customs union. So where is one country, one law? How come Sri Lankan citizens are obliged to pay a separate tax? Not only that, when it comes to dispute resolution, prior to going for an FR, you have to go through the International Dispute Resolution Center that is prescribed by 62.1 and 62.2. So you are creating a very, very difficult situation. You are actually compromising the judicial power of Sri Lanka's judiciary. That's the basic fact. And then if you observe clause 7 as far as the appointments issue, you see this particular commission has a lot of power. Implementation of the master plan for Colombo, the preparation of community rules and development regulation controls, to grant approvals to engage in business, to facilitate and exercise overall regulatory supervision, lease land, transfer freehold land, even granting of tax exemptions. So if the commission comprised of entirely of foreigners, basically you will be subjugated to a foreign power. This is what you call a classic case of neo-financial colonialism. And also, basically our sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity are definitely impacted, and it will have a detrimental impact on national security, public health, environmental standards and so on and so forth. So this kind of a situation, giving so much of power to this commission, which can consist of foreigners and lacking transparency, lacking supervision, lacking accountability, there's a very big issue involved. Let me also point out several other deficiencies. Now basically this is not subjected to auditing by the Auditor General. You see, if you look at the look at clause 15.1 and 23.4, basically there is absolutely no provision for the Auditor General to audit it. I mean, if you look at Article 154/1 of the Constitution, Article 154(8) of the Constitution, it's very, very clear. So,
But doesn't this say that the audit reports will be provided to Parliament?
That's right, but not auditing that takes place through the Auditor General. You see, if you observe clause 15(1) and 23(4), it basically very surreptitiously takes out the auditing accounts and funds of the Commission from the purview of the Auditor General. What it stipulates is a qualified auditor in terms of 154 can be used, will be used. So, you're basically hiding the whole thing. Let's move into offshore banking in the port city area. Now, it can lead to money laundering, basically. There is absolutely no supervision by the Monetary Board. In fact, if ever the Commission recommends, the Monetary Board is obliged to comply. So, in terms of 42(2) clause, in terms of clause 42(3), basically what you are trying to do is the Commission will be fully empowered and there will be absolutely no supervision by the Monetary Board. I think Monetary Board has to have regulatory and supervisory power when it comes to offshore banking business in the port city area. So, basically the Commission is given extreme powers.
All powerful.
All powerful, but it's not accountable. It's not accountable to the Sri Lankan Parliament. It's not accountable to COPE. It's not accountable to financial supervision. It's not accountable in terms of parliamentary scrutiny. So, all in all, you have a huge powerful giant who will dictate terms, and this is totally and utterly unacceptable.
Mr. Premadasa, with that we'll cross in for a quick commercial break. We have to check the headlines of the Primetime English News Bulletin and we'll be back.
Newsfirst, Newsline.
Welcome back. We are in discussion with the opposition leader regarding the Port City Economic Commission Bill. We went through certain clauses that were, in the opinion of the opposition leader, detrimental to the country, the national sovereignty and overall, progress of the country. And a main factor that you highlighted was the lack of accountability, financial and otherwise, of this particular commission that is being appointed. Let's take our conversation forward from there, Mr. Premadasa. Now, when you highlight these issues, you have to bring this up in Parliament also. You have to make the government listen, and maybe they will see the things they see. But as of now, I want to ask you this question and move on to the rest of our points as well. As of now, do you think the government listens to what you say? Because we remember from the COVID times, when you spoke about the vaccination process in the country, they didn't really listen. And now we are talking about something this serious. Do you think the government has the patience to listen to you?
Well, if you examine the way the government has behaved and practiced, listening has not been the norm, it has been the exception. But I think it's very, very important for the government to listen to these major criticisms, because we as a country are going to dig ourselves into a big hole. It's going to be a maze, it's going to be a labyrinth, and the whole country will be lost. Now, in addition to what I just mentioned, the various clauses, clause 42(2) and 42(3), in addition to removing the supervisory powers of the Monetary Board, basically these strictures can basically result in the port city and Sri Lanka becoming a haven for money laundering. Now, in addition to that, there is a danger that through the extreme powers that will be given to this commission, take clause 52(2) and 52(3), they have the autonomy to decide on businesses of strategic importance. They make their recommendations to the President. The President can come to Cabinet and the exemptions, incentives, taxes, support, subsidies, so on and so forth, can be decided without parliamentary approval. So basically, I believe they are violating the country constitution. If you look at the country constitution, it states Parliament has the sole financial power. It states in the constitution. Section 148, Parliament shall have full control over public finance. So what's happening here? Parliament's control of public finance is taken out, and according to the whims and fancies of the Commission, the President and the Cabinet, various institutions and notorious entities can be given tax exemptions and various other incentives. And in fact, this may be a backdoor avenue for the port city becoming a casino city. This is something that Sri Lanka has rejected when various interested parties promoted themselves from Australia, I believe, private parties, to go on this, to take this course of action. This was shunned by the people, by the courts, and
the Mahasangha.
by the Mahasangha, clergy, religious leaders, and everybody alike, and they had to pack their bags and go off. So this may be a backroom door to creating a separate casino city, a casino city where maybe no taxes are paid. Casinos may not be obliged to pay taxes. If I may just go on from there, just examine clause 64. I mean, basically, the Commission is empowered to permit an authorized person to have all the incentives and support that is given through the Commission, through the power of the Commission, and they can basically set up business in Sri Lanka, in Sri Lanka itself, in any of the geographical areas, in the 9 provinces and the 25 districts, for a period of 5 years. So you will have foreign entities setting up in Sri Lanka with a set of incentives that may basically be detrimental to local businesses. I mean, this clause 64 amply exemplifies that. And also, clause 73, the enactments listed in Schedule 3 to the bill shall not apply within the port city area. That's a very, very dangerous situation. So the UDA Act, a Municipal Council Ordinance, the Board of Investment Act, Strategic Developments Project Act, so on and so forth, will not be applicable in this port area. So one has to question, are we in the process of formulating a separate state?
Are we allowing that to happen?
Are we allowing that to happen? If one examines clause 3/6, that alone gives the Commission overwhelming power over all the other governmental authorities. 3/6 states as such, the relevant regulatory authority from whom such concurrence is being sought by the Commission shall, as soon as practicable in the circumstances as a matter of priority, provide such concurrence to the Commission. So what does this basically say? This basically states that governmental authorities, when asked to provide their consent, they cannot say no. They have to concur. So whatever the Commission says, Sri Lankan governmental authorities and various bureaucracies have to provide their consent. No is not an answer. It has to be yes. How can that be? You are giving unimpeded power to this Commission, and you are creating a monster that will destroy democracy in our country. The part 11 of this bill, it removes the Securities and Exchange Commission powers, and that is conferred on the Commission. So if we take this bill as a whole, there are glaring deficiencies. There are alarming powers, alarming clauses that has a direct impact on the sovereignty, territorial integrity, political independence, and the unitary character of our country. And as a country, you know, we firmly believe that our international policy should be based on achieving our national interests and national objectives. We have to ensure that we have a very smart foreign policy, a foreign policy that protects our country's interests. So non-alignment and having strategic alliances with all countries that may benefit our country is of greatest importance. We should not, as a country, get involved in an international power struggle. Sri Lanka is not a country that should be subjected to the spheres of influence policies that are practiced by some nation states. We have to be independent. We have to be truly independent. We have to protect our sovereignty, territorial integrity, and we have to use smart external policy instruments to achieve those goals. So all in all, I think the Port Development Bill is a major disaster, as it is. So I hope that the government has the good senses to listen to the constructive proposals and arguments that we have put forth, and to come up with changes that protects Sri Lanka's sovereignty, territorial integrity, political independence, and also in parallel make sure that this port city becomes the world's greatest business hub, that this becomes the turning point of our development path, our development trajectory.
Right.
So please don't take it in the wrong way. We are not anti-port city development, not at all. We want port city development, but we cannot compromise with the various violations of our constitution, the abrogation of parliamentary power, the basically you're reducing Sri Lanka's judiciary to a minimum. You are saying you have to go for international arbitration prior to having the opportunity to go for a fundamental rights application in the Sri Lankan judiciary. So what's the message you are giving the people, the country, the world regarding Sri Lanka's judiciary? So it's very important that we as a country use this opportunity to make the Colombo Port City development program a true success, while protecting Sri Lanka's sovereignty, political independence, while protecting parliamentary sovereignty and people's sovereignty and powers of the judiciary, protecting our powers of our judiciary.
Thank you, Mr. Premadasa, for your views. The people had an opportunity to talk about this, to raise their concerns. They took that decision. A lot of people went before the Supreme Court. Now the ball is in the court of the politicians, the lawmakers, and we see several key points that are being highlighted here, but we have to wait and see whether the government is willing to listen to these points raised by the opposition leader in Parliament when the Port City Commission Bill is taken up this week. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Newsline. I am Chaturanga Parch, and we thank the opposition leader for taking the time to be here with us today to explain all of this to the people from the viewpoint of the opposition leader and the Samaki Jana Balawege. So once again, sir, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show as well. Watch this show on YouTube. After the show, it will be uploaded, and take time to realize or understand the points that are being raised here. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.